We're all looking to get more media coverage these days, but if we're not used to dealing with the press, it can be quite a daunting experience. It helps to understand what journalists are looking for and what makes a good story for them. To find out, we brought together 4 of the top international journalists working in the media today, and we asked them what makes a good story, what are they looking for from you, and how can we help them to do their jobs better.
Adel Darwish, currently columnist with the Daily Mail, political editor of the Middle East magazine, and 40 years in journalism, worked for every Fleet Street title except The Guardian.
I'm Carolyn Canham and I'm Deputy Editor for a group of accounting publications, the International Accounting Bulletin, The Accountant and World Accounting Intelligence Daily.
I'm Heidi Kingstone and I'm the international correspondent for the Saturday Star in Johannesburg, and I do a lot of other freelance work.
I'm Rakesh Mathur and I'm a freelance journalist. I have worked for a lot of newspapers. I've been in journalism for the last 30 years. Started from Times of India Group and now I do freelance work.
So can you tell me, what is it you're looking for in a good story?
I think you have an innate sense of what makes a good story, something that's gripping and immediate and catches the imagination.
For me, what makes a good story in terms of the publications I write for, the International Accounting Bulletin in particular, is obviously something that's new. For example, if UHY, if one of the firms is opening up a new China desk, that probably wouldn't be the most gripping thing because we've covered stories on probably 3 or 4 other firms doing that in the past 6 months. So it's something that's innovative, something that no one else has done. Also something that's going to affect a lot of people.
A good story then would have to be good for the readership, interest everybody. I mean, it's no good having something which actually interests me personally.
Because I work for the magazines, not newspapers, so I don't need that immediacy. What I like best in my job is peeling off layers of reality. I feel that visible reality is not the real reality, and I'd like to go deeper into it. And sometimes I find contradictions.
Due to the nature of the International Accounting Bulletin, an international story, a story that crosses borders is probably going to get a slightly higher level of a run just because more of our readership will be affected by it. But at the same time, a strong national story is definitely very important.
Because I write for a lot of international magazines, so I look for global issues, but act locally, think locally. And I also look for dramatic elements in the story which touch the human heart.
I was going to say also what makes a good story is stories that have a message often, and you generally tend to need to sum up your story in a line. And if you can't do that, you sort of don't have a story.
Yeah, that's it, that what makes a good story. If you can't tell it in the first paragraph, then it's not a story.
And I guess sometimes we do things that annoy you. What are the things that really frustrate you and annoy you?
In my case, sometimes they take it for granted that I'm going to publish what they, show it to me or what their remit is, and they refuse to answer questions. So that annoys me sometimes.
I think sometimes answering in minute detail, you can be bored to death. But I mean, avoiding the question, but also arrogance and pomposity and condescension always difficult to deal with. And I mean, the crucial thing is timing and people not calling back. I mean, those are. Because you don't have a story then.
The things that frustrate me, again, number one is probably people not calling back or calling back too late.
What I find annoying actually is insulting our intelligence. This is the most sin, this is a cardinal sin. Once you get up the journalist knows if you insult his intelligence.
One of the big questions that I'm always asked is, what's the difference between on and off the record? What does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, if you trust your sources, then if somebody says off the record, I think generally you have to keep them off the record, otherwise you never get it again. However, I guess if it's a really good story, you break with that tradition. But generally you have to, I think it's a bond of trust, and if somebody tells you off the record, use it as background.
Off-the-cuff remarks are the best, which I tend to get a lot.
And cynically, of course, nothing is ever really off the record.
Yes.
It's very much off the record is background and will never be printed.
And I think you can't, off the record isn't off the record if you've said it after.
Quite often we're faced with a bad news story, something that is difficult to handle. How do you think organisations should handle bad news stories?
Spares a lot of money. I'll tell you that. You have spent a lot of money on that. I'll give you the secret.
But I can tell you, Fred. I think they should admit what's going wrong, but they should also say what they are going to do or what they are doing to address the situation. And I think they will get our sympathy for that, and will write about it, what's being done, how the wrong is being removed.
Yeah, I think they need to accept responsibility, and also cover-ups never work, because in the end journalists find out.
In my opinion, how companies should deal with bad news, I mean, especially in terms of accounting and auditing firms, you're advocates of transparency. So I really think that transparency is needed.
You've given us a lot of information today about how you like to operate and what makes a good story for you. Is there a final message that you would like to give to the people watching this today?
Tell us the truth. Answer all our questions.
I think being nice is always a good thing to start with.
My message probably would be to reiterate what I said earlier, in that accountants and auditors are advocates for transparency, so they should be transparent themselves.
My message is it's a long-term project. Build up trust and relationship. And the journalist likes his drink or her drink, so good wine always breaks the ice.
Which sounds like a good point for me to go and find a corkscrew.